I just want to film a little midweek video to run through my initial thoughts on the train canopy since getting it on the ute. I have been getting a lot of questions about it. It's hard to get back to them all, so it's easier just to try and answer everything as much as I can in this video. It'll just be a little bit of first thoughts and impressions since using it. I've had it on a 12-day big trip and then a 3-day weekender trip. So haven't spent heaps of times with it. It's not like a comprehensive long-term review, more just an initial thoughts and run through sort of what I like about it, anything I don't like about it, some upgrades we're going to do to it, a few bits and pieces like that. I did do a full video on the build process of this, which includes how it's all put together, your weights, your prices, your design, everything else. So I won't run through all that again. I'll just link that video down below if you want to check that out first if you haven't seen that one. But very quickly, it's a 1650 long tray with a 1200 long canopy on top. It's all alloy, 4mm on the tray, 3mm on the canopy, and it was built by G-Works in Port Macquarie. Now the first question is, do I like it? Yes, absolutely love it. It is so much better for the camping, for the big trips away, for packing your gear, for storing everything, just for what I do. There's so much more room. It really does beat a tub for what I do, other than the fact that obviously this costs money to get set up in the first place, compared to a majority of utes which come with a tub for free. There's really not too much at all that I miss about the tub. Obviously the tub is open and it's easier to throw gear in, and when I was at home, if I wanted to go collect a load of firewood, then I could, because I could just pull the stuff out. It's obviously harder to do with this. I'd have to take the whole canopy off. This is built for full driving, camping, touring, filming, all those bits and pieces, and it just works much better than a tub for that. The only thing I would say that would be better about the tub would be the lower weight. The weight came out not too much heavier in the end by the time we got the tray and canopy on. There is a bit more, there's about 30 or 40 more kilos there we worked out, plus it's up higher, which creates that little bit more tippiness. I do have the rooftop tent down the back, so maybe if I take that off, it would rebalance it out. When I first took it away on our trip, I noticed it immediately when it was fully loaded, fully packed, and you got the 45 litres of water down the back. But then a few days of full driving, getting used to it, I found that by the end I was handling it probably very similar to what I did the tub. I was still doing the hard tracks. We did Monkey Gum Fire Trail. I did that solo out Yarwell down the south coast, which is not an extreme four-wheel drive track, but quite a challenging drive and very off camber in spots. I found that it handled that still quite well. Probably not very different at all to how the old setup would have, but just that little bit more tippiness you do notice. But for me, that compromise of gaining that little bit of extra weight and tippiness, which I feel like I've mostly balanced out and adjusted to now anyway, compared to the storage you get inside it and how much better you can pack and organize and keep your car ready for trips. Because we go away so often for filming and that, it makes it so much easier for me when I can just keep 95% of my gear in here ready to go. And then it's all in here, it's all out of the dust, the water, the rain, the weather, everything else. Lockable so you can keep it safe, secure. It just works out much better for what I do. Now this train canopy was finished Christmas Eve. They sort of worked really hard to get it in time for me for a couple of trips we did away in January, which meant it wasn't fully 100% finished yet. So now we're back a few weeks into January. We're going to start adding in those few bits and extra pieces that we didn't get a chance to do. The first one being, which will help with the weight and tippiness, that's that little bit there. I say weight and tippiness because it's really not much at all. Basically, it still flexes well. It still handles really well on the tracks. One thing we're going to do is we're going to put a 40-litre water tank in. So I'm going to do that below and up the front, which will mean I won't have to carry as much water down the back here. And it gives me the option, if we are going on, say, a big desert trip or something, then it's really easy for me to carry, say, 90-ish litres of water, because these are 22-litre jerry cans each plus the 40-litre tank. But then just my smaller trips, I can have these empty so I can get the weight off there, and then just keep that water in the front underneath up there, so it's nice and low and more centralized. I'm still really happy that we did it this way though, and the spare tire there, we could have left it down underneath, but it was going to be the lowest like departure point, and it was just going to get smashed to pieces very quickly, and it's much easier to access up here. A couple of people said, why don't you put it on the roof up the front? Well, that takes up my roof rack space. Then it's up high, which is going to be more tippiness again, and it's pretty hard to get a 33-inch spare tire on and off your roof rack. Hard enough to lift it to there, let alone up overhead height, so it becomes very back-breaking. And then the other thing we're going to do, which will go in behind the water tank, so the water tank will be up here in the front, and then behind it we'll have a pull-out trundle drawer, which I'm keen for. So I'm going to sit my tools and recovery gear in them, which will also bring them down a little bit lower, bring that weight down a bit lower again. And then the other thing is the side tray toolboxes, which should go here. My only concern with them is that I would smash them off and break them, and it's also more weight when I've already got so much storage space already now. Do I really need them? We're sort of trying to work that out. They're going to look cool and it will give me a bit extra space, but not quite sure it's worth it yet, just working that out. And then the main other thing I want to do is the inside fit outs. It's worked sort of reasonably well. So over this side I've got the fridge on a pull out slide. Got the table there which I can pull out, and that keeps my gear separate. And then the ground is actually a bit sloped down here, but it's still been all easy and all good to access the fridge where it is now. But I am looking into upgrading the fridge, which that's a bit of a debatable topic. What I actually did like about this fridge slide is they built sort of space around it, so I was able to keep all my gear here and you know, a few utensils and that for when I made lunch I could quickly access it. Now the problem with the fridges is I could leave this set up now. It does work pretty good, but I'd like to get rid of some weight, because weight's sort of the big thing of this. When I weighed it before I went away on the trip, the GVM of these things is 2,910 kilos. When I weighed it before the trip, it was 2,820 kilos, and I still had to add a couple of bits and pieces in there as well. So it's coming up close to GVM, meaning I would like to try and clear out a bit of weight if I can, to make room for the couple of extra things I need to add. And as I said before, I am also looking at possibly doing a GVM upgrade of 100 kilos or something, just to keep it all legal and give me that working space I need. This works reasonably well. What I want to do, I think, is get a stand-up fridge. Now, a few people warned me against this. The main reason sort of seemed to be when you open the door, all the cold air coming out. It lets the air out very quickly. And also how well you can sort of keep your food in there given the forward driving I'm doing, and it's sort of bashing around in there on the tracks. Meaning a lot of people are saying stick of something like this, or get a drop down slide and maybe upgrade your fridge, because I would like a slightly bigger fridge to fit more things. When we're on a sort of 10-ish day trip and I don't have access to the shops, I am limited on what I can take, drinks, food. I would like a bit more storage. This is a 50 litre Waco on just a pull out slide that the boys at G-Works made for me. What I did is I looked up some weights here just so we could do some comparisons. If I want to upgrade my fridge, get a drop down slide, or say against getting a stand up fridge. Now I didn't have time to research obviously every single brand and drop down slide, but I just went to the main one. So I looked at an Angle fridge. A 60 litre Angle fridge freezer weighs 33 kilos. And then an MSA drop down slide, one of their newer ones, they're apparently lower weight ones, that would work with this fridge is 41 kilos. What's that, 74 kilos there in a fridge and a fridge slide. That's a lot of weight. Compare that to the upright Bushman fridges I was looking at. I can get an 85 litre one of them, which is a lot of room. It has a little freezer up the top so we can freeze a bit of food if we need to for longer trips, or put a few icy poles in there for your hot summer trips. Is 21.5 kilos. Meaning you're talking about 50 kilos lighter for a stand-up fridge. Now, if I lose a bit of cold air opening it, and it has to run the dual battery system a little bit harder at times, for 50 kilos, that's more than worth it for me. And from what I've seen, you can pack them and you can get shelves that are sort of compartments and like have lips on them, like can come up like your crisper drawer in the bottom of your freezer and that, so you can keep food in there that's not going to get all mashed around. So when I look at the positives and the negatives of a drop down slide 60 litre Angle or something versus a stand-up fridge, it's just much in favour of a stand-up fridge. Also, the other thing is those Bushman ones about $1,285. Say that 60 litre Angle was $1,800-ish, and then the MSA drop down slide was $800. So there's $2,600. And it's talking about $1,400 more than a stand-up fridge. So the money and the weight to me far outweighs that little bit of cold air you might lose and running that dual battery system a little bit harder. Before I went on this trip, I had all these big ideas to get all these fancy things in here, but I think I'm going to keep it simple for the weight for the cost and for, I don't think I need all these fancy things in here. So say we'll put the stand-up fridge here. We'll have a pull-out drawer next to it, which will have all my kitchen gear in it right next to the fridge. And it'll have a table either on top of it or underneath as well. Make it easy to get here and make your lunch, make your dinner. So drawer to there, and then I'll be able to put my bedding and stuff up on top. You know, keep a blanket there. And then I have a couple pillows there as well. And then over the other side at the moment, I've just got the alley box, which has got all my kitchen gear in it, which would then go in the drawer. Just got a few bags here, recovery bags, some chairs, the fire pit, a few bits and pieces. Don't say it is a little bit messy. I did have big plans to get big drawer set up here. I don't think that's really necessary. Weight, cost. What I'm thinking is divide it. So I have a back wall here, sort of a mesh wall that will separate the fridge and the drawer and your bedding on that side. We'll halve this. On one side, I'll have the fire pit, the chairs, the water bottle, like my shoes, a few bits and pieces like that. Then on the other side, we'll put a couple of shelves, and then I can slot my bags in there and a few bits and pieces on that shelf. I really think that that's sort of the idea I'm coming to of how to set this up without making it too fancy, costly, over the top, probably just not necessary for what I need for it. This may change slightly, but let me know if you got any ideas that you think would work well for that. Even at the moment, it's working pretty well. Another big question was about the seals in relation to dust and water. They handled brilliantly. We hit some really big storms in the few weeks I've had this, and I never got a drip of water in this whole thing. And we also had some really dusty conditions on the tracks as well, and the seals held up perfectly. I never got any dust inside either. Well, no visible dust. All my bedding and everything was super clean in there. And then one thing I do like about it is I've got this, probably a bit hard to see, but I've got a seal up the top here, so when you have it open, water won't run down your gap here. Meaning I could have it open when it's raining, even on the other side, pull the fridge out, make a little bit of lunch over there. It acts as a bit of a shelter, and all the water will run down the side of it, which was really handy too. Little upgrade I did before the trip, I got one of these Drifter spare wheel bags on the back, which has a front zip here, and then another big open area at the back. That worked really well for keeping my rubbish in. I've got a couple of waterproof bags in there, so I'd wrap my clothes up in those waterproof bags or shoes or whatever. Also even used this for firewood a couple of times, chuck some firewood down in there. And that was a question a lot of people had, well, where are you going to put the firewood now that your ute's gone? To me, it's the same with anyone else with a wagon. I basically used bags. I either got the wood at camp, or if I knew there wasn't going to be much wood around camp, I was actually using these Respect the Bush bags, fill it up with wood, and then just chuck it in the canopy, and then you'd be able to fit a couple of bags in there all good easy, give you plenty of wood for a few nights. Or I could even tie them on my roof rack if I needed to, but it's not really a drama. I've been trying to work out in my head with the sizing of the canopy. To me, I think we have nailed the size. I definitely wouldn't have wanted any bigger. This is 1200. You see people that have 1600 canopies and 1800. There's no way you can keep under your GMV. Too heavy on the tracks as well for me, and you don't need that storage. I've got the perfect amount of storage space in there for what I'm using it for. For me personally, obviously everyone's needs change. I don't think I would have wanted shorter either, because it allows me to put the fridge with a nice drawer set up next to it, and then have your space over the other side. I like that I have this bit of room down the back here. Made it easier for setting up the rooftop tent. What I can do is I can stand on the wheel and then reach and unclip it all, and even hop over here to push it up. And then I was using the ladder down over the back, which worked quite well. Because you can access these from the back, see, if it was only side access, then the ladder would be in the way of this all the time, which would be a little bit annoying, but down the back there, it's not in the way of anything. Another big one, which I didn't answer in the first video, which I probably should have, I just completely forgot, was suspension, and whether I had to upgrade the suspension. This is the same suspension I had on with the tub. I haven't touched it, and to me, it still sits level and nicely, which shows that this hasn't added too much more weight. And I think that goes back to that little bit extra tippiness, I think, is just because the weight's up that little bit higher, including the rooftop tent up there too. This is still the full Ironman Foam Cell Pro 2-inch lift kit, and the springs down the back of the 300 kilo rated ones. They're the medium range, so I can still upgrade to heavy duty. When I was fully loaded, water, everything in there, there was a little bit of sagging at the back, but then once I cleared out a bit of gear, it sat level again, and it still rides super comfortably, handles well on the road. Just depending on what upgrades I do, I may want to consider bringing that suspension weight up a little bit. I don't even know if I need to. I could get airbags as well. I'm not too sure. I probably have to talk to someone that knows a bit more about suspension than me. Even on the old tub, it did sag a little bit when I was fully loaded for a trip as well. It seems like those weights are quite similar. So yeah, nothing's changed with the suspension, and there's no major rush to change anything either. Now the next topic at hand is the dual battery system. I was gonna fit it all up in here. I don't even know if I need to. I don't know if it's worth it. The problem I have is I have my inverter on the back floor here. You can see down there I got the inverter, big 2000 watt Victron inverter, and the big wires there to go with it as well. I did want to get that inverter up on the wall here, but that's really good for charging my camera gear, my laptop, my drone batteries, everything all the time right there. It's probably not great having inverter on the floor, it's in the way, and if the car gets flooded, that's down there as well. I can quickly lift it up onto the seat, so my plan was always to do that if we got stuck in deeper water, just lift it up on the seat. All my other dual battery system is behind the back seat. Battery, the solar controller, the DC to DC charger, the bus bar, all my wiring, everything else, and then we'll just wired through a few little bits and pieces, a few USB and 12 volts there. I'm still trying to figure out whether it's going to be worth moving the inverter in there and then have a sort of more proper dual battery setup with all my plugs there, and I just charge my gear in the canopy. The only thing is those wires are massive, and it's going to be voltage power loss bringing it through to here if I don't bring the battery through as well, and it's going to be probably have to drill holes in the cab to get those big wires through. I don't know too much about electrics, so I'll leave that up to the experts, which is definitely not me, but they're just saying if I'm putting the inverter in here, I'm better probably bringing the battery in too. You know, now that I've got a battery in here, and then that brings the weight in here too, rather than down there low out of the way behind the back seat. And I've got my charging points that work there, and then I've got the inverter in the car for that other stuff when I need it. So I don't know, I'm still gonna have to go see someone and work out exactly how I want to set all that up. Another question was about whether I lost any visibility with this big thing on the back now compared to what it was before. You do lose some visibility. The main reason being you can't see out behind you. You're relying on your mirrors, but I do have the reverse camera as well. The main thing I found was when reversing, I found it harder to work out how far I was from a tree or a rock or something like that. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. I don't really know. I got the reverse camera there. Maybe some, like if I got some of those clear view, bigger mirrors, may help a little bit. Didn't really find it to be too much of a problem. You quickly get used to not being able to see straight out through your back window. I'm super happy with the black. I don't regret that, and we've had it a month now over summer, and the heat inside is not bad at all. It hardly seems to really get hot in there. I think one of the main factors of that is the rooftop tent up here, which deflects all the sun off it. Works all good. The scratching was not too bad. There is a bit of scratching down the doors there from the tracks, which you probably polish out, but honestly, I don't really care that much about scratching. My whole car's scratched anyway. That's, you know, that's all part of the four-wheel driving in your vehicle. I'm not out here to try and keep a vehicle in immaculate condition. One thing I did love was the departure angle. I don't think I hit the rear on anything at all, whereas normally on our trips I was always smashing that rear bar and whacking it into things, and it was a bit of a dig down point on your departure angles and that. Whereas this, the departure angle's unreal. Sits a bit closer than the rear bar sat sort of down here, plus out a little bit more on the old one as well. Actually, that's another thing. We're trying to organise, once again we got the weight problem, a tow bar for down the back which will have the recovery points on it, because I currently have no recovery points down the end, which is obviously quite a problem. So we need to get some recovery points down the back. And the best way to do that is probably one of those Heyman and Reese X bars. I need to get the weights of them, because that's probably say another 40 kilos added or something. So we've got to work out where we're going to stand with all those weights. But that'll allow me to tow if I need to, which I don't do much of anyway. And it'll get two big solid recovery points on either side. I think an important question was, is there anything that I would already see that I would have done differently or I could change in hindsight? And honestly, there's not anything that I can majorly think of. Because we took it slow, because these are a modular design, we just got the basics on. Now I'm able to work out that, yeah, I'm gonna want a trundle drawer, but still a bit iffy about the side boxes. We definitely need that water tank. And I've had time to think over the internals and that internal design and sort of set that up how I think will work best as well. I'm happy with the size of everything. I'm happy with how it all looks. It looks looks awesome, and how it all sits together. There's really nothing that I can think of that I think to myself, wow, I wish we didn't do that, or I wish we changed that. And then I obviously had help with the cost of this as a sponsorship thing with G-Works, helping them out with a bit of advertising for them, working with a local company. Is it worth the cost? If you can afford it and you're doing full driving camping trips, or if you need it for work, I really think it is. For a base tray and canopy, you're looking at about 10 grand through them for alloy, and then depending on the add-ons you get, and obviously the sizing as well. But first of all, the whole vehicle looks way better. It's aesthetically pleasing so much more now. It looks unreal, it looks tough, it looks ready for the tracks and the trips. And then the functionality of it is just way better than what it was before. So I think if you can afford it, it is worth it, even if you can put it on a loan. Say, I know G-Works, they do finance options on these, so you can get it and then pay it off as you go. If you're someone who goes on 1 or 2 camping trips a year and then your vehicle's your daily driver, well, no, probably not. But if you're someone, as I said, who goes all the time, I think it is, and that is definitely me. This is my lifestyle, this is what I do. I will do another video on this once we do the internals and it's all fully set up to do sort of a full complete reveal, but this is just, G-Works didn't ask me to do this video, I just did it to try and answer the questions I've been getting, and just content for me really, and you know, interesting to talk about, chat about, go through these things for anyone who is interested in it. Any major questions, let me know, but hopefully I ran through most things there.